Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. So we're going to talk about making the subject with formula having roots and powers and how do we go about it. And before I proceed, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you've not clicked the notification bell, don't forget to do so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know. All right, so it's also important as well before we proceed that you remember the inverse function, like you have square and square roots, cube and cube roots, and also raising both sides to the inverse power. So for instance, if we have x raised to the power 2 over 3 equal to a, and you want to remove this, you have to raise both sides to 3 over 2. Does that make sense? So that this will cancel that. Are you seeing it? So you have x will be equal to a 3 over 2. So talked about this in indices. Make sure you've reviewed my video on indices to understand all the rules of indices as well. All right, so let's get straight into it, okay? So let's pick this example here. So we're told to make x the subject of the formula in the following cases. So make x the subject of formula in the following cases. Or let's say questions. Okay, so we have this case here. So number one, okay, so we have this. We have the square root of x plus 5 is equal to y, okay? So the first thing we need to do, we need to convert this to index. So it's something as saying x plus 5 raised to power what? Half is equal to what? Y, all right? Or if you don't want to convert this to you can just work with it like that and saying square root of x plus 5 is equal to y. If you don't convert it to index, that means you must be very conversant with the what they call it, the inverse function or the inverse powers. So in order to remove the square root, we raise both sides to the power of 2. Are you seeing it? We raise both sides to the power of 2. So that means this is going to cancel out that. So you're going to have x plus 5 is going to be equal to y squared. And to get rid of the 5, we then subtract 5 from both sides. Is that making sense? So it's going to give us x plus 5 minus 5 is equal to y squared minus 5. So these two will cancel out. And then you will then have what? X will be equal to y squared minus 5. And that will be the answer for that. Now, for those that are very conversant with the inverse power, so you just know that to remove the square root, you just have to what? Square both sides. Okay? So square root will cancel out squared. So you now have x plus 5 is equal to what? Y squared. Now to get rid of the 5, you then subtract 5 from what? Both sides. So it's going to give us x plus 5 minus 5 is equal to y squared minus what? 5. So this will cancel that. So x will be equal to y squared minus 5. And that will be the answer for that. Okay, so you can see it's still the same answer you get. So either you prefer you convert it to indices or you're conversant with the index form, you will get exactly the same thing. All right, let's go to number 2 now, okay? So we have this now. Number 2, we have x squared divided by b squared is equal to what? 5, okay? So by now, you should know that I will always get rid of the fractions. So I'm going to multiply both sides by b squared, okay? So that will get rid of the fraction. So it's going to become b squared, all right? Multiplied by x squared over b squared is equal to b squared multiplied by what? 5. So this will cancel that, okay? So you now have x squared will be equal to 5b squared. Now, to get rid of the squared, you need to find the square root of both sides, or you raise both sides to the power of half. So anyone you prefer. So if you want to use square roots, so to get rid of the square, you now find the square root of both sides. Are you seeing it? So the square root will cancel squared. Are you seeing it? So it'll be x. So you're going to have x will be equal to the square root of 5b squared. And that will be the answer for that. And again, you can also simplify this. So remember in laws of sorts, I told you square root of AB. I told you square root of AB is equal to square root of A times square root of B, right? In the laws of sorts. So that means I can also break this down a bit. So it's going to be equal to square root of 5 multiplied by square root of what? B squared. Are you seeing it again? So now square root of b squared, this can also cancel that. Then you now have x is going to be square root of 5 times what? B. So therefore, x is going to be equal to b root 5. And that will be the answer for that, okay? And you will see that that is very easy to solve this, just that you have to be conversant with the laws of indices. And also the concept of raising both sides to the inverse power and the inverse function of like squared and square root and cube and what? Cube root. All right, let's solve one more or maybe like 3 or 4 more, depending how we're going. So we have this one here. We have the cube root of x plus y is equal to 4. So I need, I can get rid of the y. So it's going to be, I'll subtract y from both sides. So we're going to have the cube root of x plus y minus y will be equal to 4 minus y. Plus, we'll cancel that, okay? Then we now have the cube root of x will be equal to 4 minus y. So I need to get rid of the cube root. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to raise both sides to 3, power of 3, okay? And that cube root will cancel that. And then you now have x is going to be equal to 4 minus y, all raised to power what? 3. Now, some of you might prefer to go the other route. So you have the cube root of x is equal to 4 minus y. You write this in index form, x to the power 1 over 3 will be equal to 4 minus y. Now, to get rid of 1 over 3, we'll raise both sides to the power of what? 3. Are you seeing it? Then this will cancel that. Then you're going to have x is going to be equal to 4 minus y raised to the power of 3. So you can see, regardless of the method, you will get exactly the same thing. All right? So it's very important that you just know the laws of indices and know it very well and be very, very conversant with it. All right, let's pick another one. So number 4, we have x 3 over 2 is equal to 5. X 3 over 2 is equal to 5. So we're having x 3 over 2 is equal to 5. How do we get rid of this 3 over 2? Very easy. We're applying the inverse of function. So raise both sides to 2 over 3. Are you seeing it? So 3 over 2 times 2 over 3 will cancel out. Are you seeing it? And that will give us x is equal to 5, 2 over 3. And that will be the answer for that. Okay? Let's add more questions to this. So number 5, we're having a square root of x squared plus z squared is equal to y squared. Okay, so what do you need to do? We need to get rid of, we're making x subject of the formula. So I have to get rid of the square root. So by squaring both sides. So this is going to cancel that. So we're going to have, or let me write it down here. So I know students do take notes, so they won't get confused. So we're having this. So we're having square root of x squared plus z squared is equal to y squared. So what you do, you take the square of both sides so that we can cancel out the square roots. So this will cancel out that. So we're going to have x squared plus z squared. Now, in the loss of indices, if you remember, I say a raised to the power m, n is equal to a raised to the power m times n. Okay, so that will be equal to 2 times 2 will give us what? 4. Are you seeing it? Then I need to let x to be on its own. Then I'll subtract z squared from what? Both sides. Okay? So we're going to have x squared plus z squared minus z squared will be equal to y4 minus z squared. So this will cancel that. Then you now have x squared will be equal to y4 minus what? Z squared. Now, how do you get rid of the square? You find the square root of both sides, and you find the square root of both sides. So this will cancel that. Then you will now have x. Okay? So you now have x will be equal to square root of y4 minus what? Z squared. And that will be the answer for that. So you just see, you keep on playing, you play with the loss of indices, play with all the manipulation you're aware of, and then you will get the same thing. All right, so let me just add 2 more examples. Then I'll go to the next video. All right, let me just add 2 more, then we'll call it a day for this. So let's say we have the square root of x raised to the power 5 over 2 plus z raised to the power 3 over 5 is equal to y raised to the power what? 2 over 7. Okay. So what do you need to do? What we need to do here? So we need to get rid of the square root here. So we can now have 5 over 2 plus z 3 over 5. Okay. All square roots is equal to y 2 over 7. All right. So to get rid of the square root, we have to raise both sides to the power of 2, right? To get rid of the square root. So this will cancel that. Then we're going to have x 5 over 2 plus z 3 over 5 will be equal to, so remember, a raised to the power m, n is going to be equal to a raised to the power what? M times n. And this is going to give us y raised to the power 2 over 7 times 2 will give you 4 over 7. All right? Then we need to get rid of this z here. So we're going to subtract z 3 over 5 from both sides. We're going to subtract z 3 over 5 from both sides. Are you seeing it? So that means what we are going to have then, we're going to have x 5 over 2 plus z 3 over 5 minus z 3 over 5 will be equal to y 4 over 7 minus z 3 over 5. Are you seeing it? Then this will cancel that. Then after that, we're going to have we'll then have x. We have x 5 over 2 will be equal to y 4 over 7 minus z 3 over 5. Now we need to get rid of the 5 over 2, so we're going to apply the inverse function. So we'll raise this to 2 over 5. Are you seeing it? And we'll also raise this as well to 2 over 5. So this will cancel that. Then we now have x will now be equal to y 4 over 7 minus z 3 over 5, all raised to the power of what? 2 over 5. And that will be the answer for that. Okay, so that is how easy it is to solve. Okay, so please go to the worksheet and solve as many questions as you can. And that will make so that you can just solidify the concept you've learned here already, basically. All right, so I'm going to pick one more. All right, let's just pick one more. We've done a lot already. Let's just pick one more, and then we'll call it a day for this video here. So we have x squared divided by b squared minus y squared divided by z squared is equal to 9. All right. So the same thing, like I always say, I prefer to get rid of the fractions. So it's going to become, we multiply both sides by b squared z squared. I multiply by b squared z squared. And I multiply by b squared z squared. So that I can get rid of the fraction. So basically it's going to become b squared z squared multiplied by x squared over b squared minus b squared z squared multiplied by y squared over what? Z squared will be equal to b squared z squared multiplied by 9. Okay, so as you can see, b squared will cancel b squared here, z squared will cancel z squared there. So now we now have x, we can call it x squared z squared minus b squared y squared will be equal to 9b squared z squared. Are you seeing it? So now we need to get rid of the minus b squared plus y minus b squared y squared. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add b squared y squared to both sides. Okay, so it's going to become x squared z squared minus b squared y squared. Now plus b squared y squared will now be equal to 9b squared z squared plus b squared y squared. Okay, so then this is now going to cancel this will cancel this out. So you now have x squared z squared is equal to 9b squared z squared plus b squared y squared. Okay, so now the next thing, I need to get rid of this z squared. So to get rid of the z squared, I'm going to divide all the variables by what? Z squared. So that means this will cancel that, this will cancel this. Then we're going to have x squared will be equal to 9b squared plus b squared y squared over what? Z squared. Now to get rid of the squared, I have to take the square root of both sides. So I take the square root of this, and then I have to take the square root of all this. I remember the square root means plus or minus, okay? So it depends. But for this, I'm going to ignore it. But you always remember in quadratic, I told you the square root refers to plus or minus. So this will now cancel that, okay? Then we now have x. X now is now going to be equal to the square root of what? 9b squared plus b squared y squared over what? Z squared. So to be very, very correct, you can add plus or minus here. So to be very, very accurate. But in this case, you can ignore it, but it's fine. And that is the answer for that. And that will give you that. Okay. So we're done with that. You just go back to the textbook, pick more examples, pick more questions, and solve, and you'll be fine. All right, we'll go to the next one, which will be the formula requiring factorizing. So sometimes you might be asked to mix the subject of formula, but you have to factorize first before you begin the process. So how do you go about those kind of questions? All right. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. So it's very important for you to subscribe and click notification bell so that when I post the next video, you'll be the first person to know. All right. So I'll see you soon in the next video and see you soon.